Blinding stage lights, a hushed auditorium, and then the shriek of static. 16-year-old Jaden Carter watched in horror as his meticulously prepared presentation dissolved into a chilling error message: file corrupted. Sabotage. Before powerful judges, his vision for equitable futures, born from struggle and his late father's legacy, was silenced. Exposed and alone, could raw conviction triumph over calculated cruelty? Dive into Jaden's fight for dignity against a system designed to break him. Jaden Carter existed in the quiet hum of Liberty Heights Academy's advanced placement classroom, a space that felt both aspirational and suffocating. The words typed at the top of his digital document seemed to pulse with a life of their own: my vision for equitable futures. Outside these brick walls, his mother, Lena, navigated the sterile corridors of a biomedical research facility, her extra shifts cleaning specialized labs a silent testament to the cost of keeping their small apartment lit, their internet connected, their dreams tenuously afloat. Inside, Jaden's ambitions stretched toward horizons most kids from his side of Havenwood City didn't dare sketch, let alone articulate. When Ms. Anya Sharma, crisp in her tailored linen suit, drifted towards his workstation, her gaze snagged on his screen. A delicate laugh, sharp as shattered glass, escaped her lips. Equitable futures? Starting where, Jaden? Harvard? The name was less a question, more an accusation laced with amusement. She pitched her voice just loud enough for the classroom's privileged scions, Bryce Thompson and Kyle Astor, lounging nearby, to catch the drift. Their ensuing snickers were a familiar chorus. They expected the usual flicker of shame from this 16-year-old black kid whose address coded him as other, whose aspirations seemed laughably out of sync with his worn backpack and off-brand sneakers. Instead, they were met with a stillness, a quiet dignity that felt almost defiant. Jaden meticulously saved his document, closed his school-issued laptop, and packed his bag. The air crackled with unspoken judgment, the weight of lowered expectations pressing down. As he walked towards the door, the silence was punctuated only by Kyle's drawled comment: maybe facilities management needs interns, Carter. More your speed. Jaden didn't flinch, didn't turn. He pushed through the door, the calculated cruelty echoing behind him. None of them, least of all Miss Sharma with her carefully curated worldview, could fathom that within weeks, a dean from one of the nation's most revered universities would stride through these same doors, asking for Jaden Carter by name, not for his perceived limitations, but for the very vision they mocked. The late afternoon sun slanted through the tall classroom windows, painting long, distorted shapes on the scuffed linoleum. Most students had scattered, chasing the fragmented freedom of after-school hours. Jaden, however, remained, the glow of the monitor illuminating the intense concentration on his face. His fingers flew across the keyboard, weaving threads of policy, lived experience, and audacious hope into the fabric of his essay. He wrote not just of attending a place like Harvard, but of transforming it, of using its immense platform to dismantle the very inequities that kept kids like him on the margins. Equitable Futures wasn't just a title, it was a declaration, a blueprint. He didn't register Miss Sharma re-entering, her footsteps soft, predatory. She observed him, a flicker of something unreadable in her eyes: annoyance? Disbelief? Still at it, Mr. Carter? Her voice startled him. He looked up, momentarily pulled from his flow. Just refining my proposal, Miss Sharma. She leaned closer, her perfume and cloying counterpoint to the classroom's chalk-dusted air. Her eyes scanned the screen, lingering on the essay's bold claims, its unflinching critique of systemic barriers. A slow smile spread across her face, thin and sharp. Proposal? Ambition is admirable, Jaden, but delusion, that's a dangerous path. Perhaps focus your energies on something more attainable? State college, maybe? The condescension was a physical force. Bryce and Kyle, still packing up languidly in the corner, sniggered again. Yeah, Carter, Bryce chimed in, heard the community college has a great program on, well, whatever it is you people do. Jaden felt the familiar heat climb his neck, but his expression remained a carefully constructed mask. He saved his work again, deliberately, methodically. Thank you for the advice, Miss Sharma. He zipped his backpack, the sound loud in the charged silence, and stood. As he passed Bryce's desk, the other boy subtly shifted his chair, attempting to block his path. Jaden sidestepped smoothly, practiced in navigating petty obstacles. Definitely Ivy League material, Kyle mocked as Jaden reached the door. He paused, hand on the frame, but didn't turn. He walked into the emptying hallway, shoulders straight, refusing to let them see the tremor in his hands until he was out of sight. Only then did he lean against the cool cinderblock wall, closing his eyes for a brief moment, the weight of their scorn settling heavily in his chest before he pushed off and headed for the long bus ride home. The next day, Miss Sharma stood before the class, an unervingly bright smile playing on her lips. A palpable tension filled the room. Students shifted, sensing the edge beneath her professional veneer. Her gaze swept across the faces, pausing fractionally longer on Jaden. "Class, building on our discussion of persuasive writing," she announced, her marker squeaking against the whiteboard, "we have a new assignment. You will each draft a personal statement responding to a hypothetical, University of Tomorrow, admissions prompt. Articulate how your unique perspective will contribute to fostering a truly equitable campus environment." Confused murmurs rippled through the room. Jaden kept his gaze fixed on his notebook, feeling the prickle of awareness from classmates who had witnessed or heard about yesterday's exchange. "This prestigious, albeit fictional, university," Ms. Sharma continued, her eyes flicking towards Jaden again, "represents the zenith of academic and social progress. This exercise will challenge you to consider what true equity demands and, perhaps, a subtle emphasis, provide a reality check regarding the qualifications necessary to even engage in such a conversation." The assignment wasn't pedagogical, it was a performance, a public act of undermining disguised as intellectual rigor. Jaden felt the slow burn of humiliation rekindle, but he clamped down hard, refusing her the satisfaction. "Is this graded on, like, passion?" Reyes asked, smirking directly at Jaden. "Substance always distinguishes itself, Mr. Thompson," Ms. Sharma replied smoothly. "As does superficiality." After class, Jaden made a quick escape, but a hesitant voice stopped him near the lockers. Maya Rodriguez, a quiet girl who often seemed to fade into the background, stood there, her dark eyes troubled. She rarely spoke, her presence marked by a certain guardedness, as if navigating the school hallways required a level of invisibility. "That was messed up," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Jaden blinked, surprised. "Standard operating procedure," he replied, attempting a nonchalant shrug. "You're still gonna do it, right? The essay?" He met her gaze, saw a flicker of shared understanding. "Yeah," he said after a beat. "Can't let her win." Maya gave a small, almost imperceptible nod, a silent acknowledgement of solidarity, before melting back into the bustling corridor. That night, the small apartment felt both sanctuary and cage. Lena returned late, smelling faintly of industrial disinfectant from her extra shifts at the OmniGen research labs. She found Jaden hunched over the small kitchen table, the glow of the second-hand laptop illuminating his determined frown. She placed a steaming mug of tea beside him. "Tough day?" she asked gently. He just nodded, not trusting his voice. Lena knew that silence. After years of raising him alone, navigating the coded language of landlords, bill collectors, and indifferent school officials, she could read the weight in his posture. "Don't let them grind you down, Jaden," she said softly, her hand resting briefly on his shoulder. "Your voice matters. Especially when they try to tell you it doesn't." Later, while Jaden slept, Lena carefully counted the cash from her extra shifts, cleaning containment zones, handling specialized waste. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid better, enough to keep the upgraded internet service Jaden needed for his research, enough to keep the lights on their future. Meanwhile, deep in the school's network, Bryce and Kyle enacted their own brand of equity. Using Bryce's access to advanced software often employed for academic research integrity checks, they subtly manipulated metadata. They uploaded fragments of Jaden's saved essay draft, gleaned from a moment he'd left his workstation unattended, into a shared teacher resource folder, embedding them within paragraphs of obscure academic articles they found online. They then used the software to flag Jaden's subsequent drafts, submitted through the school portal, as having suspicious overlaps with the material they had planted, carefully backdating the planted file's creation timestamps just enough to seem legitimate. "Perfect," Bryce smirked, closing the program. Let's see Harvard boy talk his way out of digital forensics. A few days later, Jaden was summoned to Principal Davies' office. Mr. Davies was a man caught between bureaucratic procedure and genuine concern, his office a neutral space reflecting his cautious approach. Ms. Sharma was already there, her expression a careful blend of disappointment and vindication. Jaden, Mr. Davies began, sliding printouts across the desk. Ms. Sharma raised concerns regarding potential plagiarism in your University of Tomorrow submission. Our system flagged significant overlaps with existing academic work. Jaden stared at the highlighted passages, comparing them to his essay. The overlaps were undeniable, yet utterly foreign. I don't understand, he stammered. I wrote this. Every word. Ms. Sharma interjected smoothly, the digital evidence is quite clear, Jaden. These passages match texts uploaded to our server prior to your submission. That's impossible. Jaden insisted, his voice rising. Unless someone. A quiet knock interrupted the escalating tension. Mr. Elias Vance, the school's head custodian, stood in the doorway, his usual placid expression replaced by something sharper. Excuse the intrusion, Principal Davies, Miss Sharma. His voice was calm but carried unexpected weight. I happened to be reviewing server logs for maintenance purposes earlier this week. Principal Davies frowned. Mr. Vance, this is a confidential matter. Vance stepped fully into the room. Indeed. And the logs show unusual upload activity to the faculty resource drive from a student access terminal, coinciding precisely with the timestamp manipulation on the source files flagged against Jaden's work. Specifically, he added, meeting Ms. Sharma's suddenly wary gaze, from a terminal frequently used by Mr. Thompson. A stunned silence descended. Ms. Sharma paled slightly. Principal Davies looked from Vance to Sharma, then back at the printouts, a new understanding dawning. While this doesn't constitute definitive proof of framing, Mr. Davies said carefully, it raises serious questions about the integrity of this evidence. Jaden, given this ambiguity, I'm placing you on academic probation pending further investigation. But consider this a warning, tread carefully. As Jaden left, Vance caught his eye, offering a subtle nod. The old custodian saw more than just dust and grime. He saw the patterns, the manipulations. And he chose to speak. Later that evening, Lena, armed with a fierce calm, requested a meeting with Ms. Sharma, determined to understand the source of the animosity directed at her son. The confrontation was brief, polite on the surface, but underscored by Lena's unwavering defense of Jaden's integrity and Sharma's icy, dismissive responses, revealing a prejudice that ran deeper than mere academic standards. The weight of probation settled on Jaden like a physical restraint. Whispers followed him, Ms. Sharma's oversight became hypervigilant, and the freedom to make mistakes, an essential part of learning, felt revoked. One afternoon, Maya slipped a folded note into his hand between classes. Bryce bragged about digital traps in the library yesterday. Be careful. It wasn't much, but it confirmed his suspicions and solidified Maya's place as a silent ally in his increasingly isolated world. His refuge became the hushed after-school hours with Mr. Vance. The custodian, it turned out, possessed an intellect that belied his uniform. Their conversation started simply, Jaden venting his frustration, Vance listening patiently. Then, Vance began posing questions, slipping Jaden dog-eared paperbacks pulled from a hidden stash in his supply closet. Foucault said, Frere. Power isn't just brute force, Jaden, Vance explained one afternoon, gesturing towards a passage in Discipline and Punish. It's in the systems, the language, the way knowledge itself is controlled and deployed. Understand the structure, and you can start to dismantle it. He guided Jaden through concepts of rhetoric, critical theory, and the architecture of systemic inequality, tools far sharper than anything taught in Ms. Sharma's AP English class. Where did you learn all this? Jaden asked, bewildered by the depth of the custodian's knowledge. Vance smiled enigmatically. Let's just say I spent a long time observing the machine from different angles, son. Sometimes the best education is piecing together the fragments they try to hide. One evening, seeking solace from the school's pressures, Jaden asked Lena more about his father, William Carter. He knew the basic story, a passionate community advocate tragically killed during a peaceful protest demanding fair housing practices when Jaden was only 3. Lena hesitated, then pulled out a worn photo album. There was William, young, fiery-eyed, addressing a crowd. Another showed him laughing with a group outside a local university building. He worked with professors there, Lena explained, her voice soft with memory. On a big urban policy project. He wasn't a student, not formally. He didn't have the degrees. But he had the insights, the lived experience they lacked in their ivory towers. He believed knowledge belonged in the streets, not just in lecture halls. She showed Jaden a faded letter, not an acceptance, but a commendation from a university research initiative praising William's invaluable contributions. He dreamed big, Jaden. Not just for himself, but for everyone the system overlooked. She paused, tracing the outline of William's face in a photo. There were people, collaborators, who saw his brilliance. One was a professor, Vance. Jaden stared at her, the connection clicking into place. And another, Lena continued quietly, was a young, idealistic administrator running the university's community outreach. Her name was Reyes. The name hung in the air, unfamiliar yet resonant. They believed his work deserved a national platform, Lena finished, a shadow crossing her face. But life had other plans. The announcement came via a school-wide email, the inaugural statewide social impact pitch competition, sponsored by a coalition of universities and foundations. The grand prize included significant scholarship funds and mentorship opportunities. The judging panel boasted high-profile academics and civic leaders, including Dean Reyes, now a prominent figure at a prestigious East Coast university. Hope surged in Jaden, sharp and unexpected. This felt different, aligned with his father's legacy, with his own burgeoning vision. When he approached Principal Davies, Ms. Sharma materialized, citing his probationary status. School policy prohibits students under academic review from representing Liberty Heights in external competitions, she stated flatly. But Mr. Davies, emboldened perhaps by Vance's earlier intervention, consulted the rulebook. Actually, Ms. Sharma, the policy refers to disciplinary probation, not academic review pending investigation. Jaden is eligible. Sharma's lips thinned, but she couldn't argue. Jaden threw himself into preparation, Mr. Vance now acting as a demanding coach. Your ideas are strong, Jaden, Vance pushed, reviewing his pitch outline. But you need to ground them not just in data, but in authentic voice. Make them feel the urgency. During one intense session, Vance spoke of his own past. I used to teach critical theory at the University of Chicago, he admitted quietly. Got disillusioned with the academic games, the echo chambers. Felt more real work needed doing elsewhere. Sometimes, he added, his eyes distant, you have to step outside the structure to truly see it. Meanwhile, Bryce Thompson, furious at Jaden's eligibility, plotted. He approached Aaron, a classmate known for his tech skills and social anxieties. Need a favor, Bryce said, dangling tickets to a sold-out music festival. Carter's presentation at the state competition. A little technical difficulty? Microphone static, maybe his presentation file gets corrupted? Nothing traceable. Aaron, eager for acceptance, reluctantly agreed. The stage was set, not just for Jaden's pitch, but for another battle in the undeclared war for his future. The statewide social impact pitch competition buzzed with the nervous energy of ambitious youth. Held in the gleaming atrium of a downtown corporate headquarters, the event screamed influence and access. Jaden, in his carefully ironed shirt and slacks, felt the familiar pang of being an outsider amidst the easy confidence of students from wealthier districts, many flanked by parents radiating success. Lena couldn't get the time off. Her specialized cleaning shifts at OmniGen were inflexible. You carry our hopes, Jaden, she'd said that morning, pressing a small, smooth stone into his hand. Your father carried this when he spoke. Now it's your turn. He clutched it in his pocket as he navigated the registration, spotting Bryce and Kyle holding court near the complimentary espresso bar. Well, Bryce called out, his voice dripping sarcasm. Liberty Heights sent their charity case. Hope you don't get lost, Carter. Jaden ignored them, head held high, Vance's words echoing. Don't let them define the terms of engagement. He reviewed his notes, waiting for his turn. The format was simple, a 5-minute pitch followed by Q&A from the judges. He watched other presentations, slick slideshows about apps for volunteerism, proposals for hydroponic gardens in affluent suburbs. Then, his name was called. He walked towards the stage, took a deep breath, and clipped on the microphone. My proposal, he began, his voice clear, focuses on creating opportunity hubs within underserved communities, leveraging vacant urban spaces. Suddenly, a piercing static shrieked from the speakers. He flinched. The sound tech, Aaron, looked flustered, fiddling with the controls. The static subsided, but as Jaden turned to gesture towards his presentation slide on the main screen, it flickered, displaying a file corrupted error message. A ripple of murmurs went through the audience. From the corner of his eye, Jaden saw Bryce smirk. The setup, panic flared, cold and sharp. 5 seconds of dead air felt like an eternity. The judges exchanged glances. He saw Dean Isabel Reyes lean forward slightly, her expression unreadable. Then, Jaden unclenched his fist around the stone in his pocket. He stepped away from the podium, away from the malfunctioning tech. Apologies for the technical difficulties, he said, his voice regaining its steadiness, amplified now only by the room's acoustics. But perhaps it's fitting. Because my proposal isn't about slick presentations. It's about the systemic failures that leave potential corrupted, that silence voices before they can even be heard. He abandoned his prepared script. He spoke from the core of his being, weaving his research with the raw truths of Havenwood City, with the echoes of his father's activism, with Lena's daily grind, with the condescension he faced daily at Liberty Heights. He talked about dignity as a resource, about equity not as a handout but as an unlocking of potential that benefited everyone. He painted a picture of his opportunity hubs, not just as physical spaces, but as ecosystems of mentorship, skill sharing, and community-led innovation. His voice, initially tight, grew resonant, filled with a passion born of conviction. The audience, initially restless, grew still. The judges stopped shuffling papers. Dean Reyes watched him intently, a thoughtful expression replacing her earlier neutrality. He finished, not with a statistic, but with a challenge. True social impact isn't measured in dollars invested, but in the dignity restored and the futures reclaimed. The silence that followed was profound, broken finally by applause that felt different, less polite, more earned. The Q&A was rigorous, but Jaden fielded the questions with poise, drawing on his deep understanding, his arguments sharpened by Vance's mentorship. Afterward, as participants mingled, Dean Reyes approached him. "Mr. Carter," she said, her voice warm but direct. "That was compelling. Your father would have been proud." Jaden froze. "You knew my father?" Reyes smiled faintly. "William Carter?" "Yes, I did. Years ago, when I ran community outreach at the local university. He collaborated with us, with Professor Vance too, though Elias preferred the background even then. William had a mind like a diamond, rough, maybe, by traditional standards, but brilliant and unbreakable. His ideas on community empowerment were ahead of their time." The following week, Dean Reyes visited Liberty Heights Academy. The buzz was immediate. Ms. Sharma assumed she was there for Bryce, whose father, Douglas Thompson, a powerful real estate developer, was a major school benefactor. Sharma preened, preparing her accolades for Bryce. Principal Davies escorted Dean Reyes through the halls, arriving at Sharma's classroom. "Ms. Sharma," Davies said, his tone formal. "Dean Reyes is here to see Jaden Carter." Sharma's jaw tightened, color draining from her face. In Davies' office, the conversation was brief but seismic. Dean Reyes expressed her admiration for Jaden's performance and intellect, mentioning the Carter-inspired impact scholarship her university was developing, focused on demonstrated community leadership, not legacy connections. She also subtly inquired about the school's handling of academic integrity issues, referencing Jaden's probationary status, which Principal Davies quickly clarified was under review due to procedural irregularities. As Reyes left, she gave Jaden a card. "Stay focused, Mr. Carter. Obstacles have a way of revealing character." The battle had been won, but Jaden sensed the war wasn't over. Douglas Thompson wasn't a man who tolerated challenges to his son's perceived entitlement. Douglas Thompson moved swiftly, his influence a blunt instrument. He didn't bother with school channels. He summoned Jaden, Lena, and Principal Davies to a mediation meeting at his downtown corporate office, a power play disguised as conflict resolution. The conference room was opulent, intimidating, overlooking the city Jaden's father had fought for. Ms. Sharma was present, seated beside Thompson, her alliance clear. Thompson, flanked by a lawyer, launched immediately into accusations. "Mr. Carter's conduct has become increasingly problematic," Thompson declared, his voice booming. "His public performance at the competition was clearly designed to undermine my son. His attitude towards faculty," he glanced at Sharma, "has been insubordinate. We have concerns about his overall suitability." Before Jaden could respond, the conference room door opened. Dean Isabel Reyes entered, followed by Mr. Elias Vance, no longer in his custodian uniform but in a simple, well-worn tweed jacket that hinted at his past. "Forgive my intrusion, Mr. Thompson," Dean Reyes said coolly, "but as Mr. Carter is a prospective candidate for programs under my purview, including one directly inspired by work associated with his late father, I have a profound interest in ensuring due process and protecting him from undue external pressure." Thompson visibly bristled. "This is a private matter concerning school conduct." Principal Davies finally spoke, his voice firm, shedding his usual caution. "Mr. Thompson, your attempts to frame this as a conduct issue are transparent. In fact," he placed a slim folder on the polished table, "I have spent weeks compiling documentation regarding your son's conduct." He detailed the pattern of harassment, the digital sabotage attempts, citing Vance's server logs and Maya's discreet testimony. "This school has a zero-tolerance policy for bullying, sir. It extends to everyone." Thompson's face flushed crimson. "This is outrageous." Just as he prepared to unleash further threats, Dean Reyes calmly slid a document across the table. "This," she said, "is a communication from my university's general counsel, expressing concern over potential interference in our evaluation process, specifically attempts to defame a candidate. We take such matters extremely seriously." Thompson stared at the letterhead, the legal implications sinking in. Defeated, radiating fury, he signaled his lawyer, and they abruptly left the room. Ms. Sharma lingered, avoiding Jaden's gaze, before quietly departing, her future at Liberty Heights clearly over. Relief washed over Jaden, potent but brief. As they left Thompson's tower, Vance clapped him on the shoulder. One battle down. But later that night, Jaden's phone lit up. An anonymous message contained a link to a private audio file, a recording, clearly edited, of Jaden venting in frustration to Maya after a particularly grueling day, snippets spliced together to make him sound arrogant, dismissive of authority, almost threatening. The accompanying text read, "Heard you have an interview soon. Maybe they should hear the real Jaden Carter. This goes wide tomorrow." Another attack, more insidious, twisting his own words against him. Panic tightened its icy grip. He showed Lena and Vance. "They won't stop," Lena whispered, her face grim. Vance studied the message, his eyes narrowed. "Then we don't let them control the narrative. You get ahead of it, Jaden. You own it." The final interview wasn't explicitly labeled Harvard, but the panel assembled in a quiet university club room radiated that level of prestige. Dean Reyes sat among them. Jaden, armed with a counter-narrative crafted with Vance's help, felt a precarious calm. He knew the audio leak was likely already in their hands. After the initial pleasantries, Dean Reyes addressed it directly, her expression neutral. "Mr. Carter, an audio clip purporting to be you has been circulated. It raises questions about temperament and respect. Your response?" Jaden took a breath. He didn't deny the voice was his. Instead, he contextualized it, explaining the pressures, the targeted harassment, the moment of unguarded frustration. He spoke of the exhaustion of constantly navigating spaces not built for him, the anger that simmers beneath forced composure. "That recording captures a moment of frustration," he stated, meeting each panelist's gaze. It doesn't capture the resilience learned, the perspective gained, or the commitment I have to using my voice, even when it trembles, to advocate for genuine equity. Perhaps, he added, holding their attention, institutions like yours need to understand not just the polished presentations, but also the raw realities faced by students who come from outside the usual corridors of power. That frustration is part of the story too. Ignoring it doesn't make it disappear, understanding it might make us stronger. He then pivoted back to his vision, his voice regaining its passionate conviction. The interview continued, rigorous and probing. Jaden answered honestly, drawing on his father's legacy, his mother's strength, Vance's wisdom, and his own hard-won insights. He spoke not as a supplicant, but as a potential collaborator in the difficult work of building a truly equitable future. When it was over, he walked out into the crisp afternoon air, the city skyline stretching before him. He felt drained, exposed, uncertain. Had he said the right things? Had they seen past the noise, the attacks, the curated image of who he was supposed to be? He pulled out his phone, the screen dark. He stood there for a long moment, the weight of the unknown pressing down. Then, the screen lit up. A single, unread text message from an unknown number. He hesitated, then opened it. Just 4 words. The conversation has started.